Welcome back to the Applying Logic podcast. I am your host, Rich, and I want to thank you guys for continuing to rock with me. Shout out to everybody who's been hitting me up, who's reached out, who has shared information, sent me stuff. I appreciate all of it. I appreciate all the feedback, so keep bringing it, keep it coming. And thank you guys for clicking the link. Do not forget, if you are not yet subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the video is going to be up on YouTube. And with that said, we have a really good show for you guys. Start with some business first. If you are in the DMV area or plan on being in the DMV area, you already know once the carnival season is over, which we are in the middle of the carnival season right now, we got all the Carnival Return Fest going down right here in the DMV. First up, Saturday, February 24th, is going to be Hooky Life's PCP, Post-Carnival Pump. They got Back to Basics, Travis World, Lurbs, Mystic Vibe 6.0, and DJ Ghost all on the lineup. It's going down at Karma DC. The next day, Ricky Platinum brings you Fetish. All the VI crew stand up. They got Pumper and DJ Kareem out the VI, alongside the DMV's own Ricky Platinum, DJ Majestic, and Sinka Supreme. Then next week, right after that, March 2nd, you got Sekou Flex, Soca and Rum. That's going down at the Buena Vista Ballroom. It's going to be DJ Majestic, Fire Oats, DJ Bimshire, White Boy the DJ, and Giovanni is on the lineup. Almost forgot. I know Sekou got some more in store for you guys. After that, March 9th, Giovanni is bringing you straight soca. He's got Rigo Suave out of New York on the lineup. And alongside a host of DMV DJs, DJ Akil, Giovanni, DJ Curry. That will be at Caldi's Rooftop in Silver Spring. And that night, Freeze International is bringing SSS DMV back to the DMV Return Fest. SSS goes down at Karma DC. It's got Steph, the One Gal Army, coming down with him, alongside DJ Majestic, Precious Lane, Most Gracious Lady, and Fire Oats. So a lot of big things happening in DMV within the next month. Those are all the return fests from Carnival. So log on, holla, follow the promoters. The tickets are available on Eventbrite, Elite Tix, Frontline Ticketing. So follow them, promoters, and you can get all the information and be able to purchase your tickets, get them in advance. And we will have a good time in the next month, all right? So I was getting ready to record this last night and honestly fell asleep. And I'm kind of glad I did, because then I woke up, because I wasn't even thinking about the Grammys at the time. So I woke up to see all of the Grammy messages, and that really kind of made me glad that I didn't record before. And it kind of shifted everything that the episode was about to be about. So we're going to get into the Grammys a little bit later. But for now, I want to talk about the subject at hand, near and dear to my heart, as y'all all know, which I am missing this year. Unfortunately, I'm shedding a tear on the inside and a little bit on the outside, if I'm being honest with you. Trinidad Carnival, it is happening. It is live. You know, the big events already started this past weekend, and I've been watching them all on my social media feed. Has been flooded. Shout out to everybody who is there. I'm seeing a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I follow are already on the island. So they look like they're having a time. But there's been a couple of topics in the news within the Caribbean circle around the Trinidad Carnival and the turnout. And I know I have discussed that here and on the Guys Unpacked podcast. Shout out to the homie Dre. He is also in Trinidad, so I'm not talking to him at the moment. Shout out to homie Dre. Right now, there has been somewhat conflicting reports regarding the turnout this year for Trinidad Carnival. And both stories are pretty interesting. There was a story on, can't remember what site I got it from, but it came from the news, where the big bands in Trinidad, namely Tribe and Yuma, are reporting diminished turnout. And through the course of the article, the interview, they were mentioning that they believe the diminished turnout is partially attributed to the elevated crime rate in Trinidad. Like, a lot of them talked about the crime, and they talked about the overall cost of Carnival right now, which I think most of us Carnival goers can attest to, has been a little bit outside of what it normally is. It's been pretty expensive. I've talked about it here, like I said. Airfare is was a little out of control. The tickets to the parties has been just everything. Like I'm thinking about it and I'm going over in my head like what was paid and what I saw, some of the ticket prices. So anyway, that they believe led to a lot of people deciding this year they're going to sit this one out. They also attributed it to a short season. Now, for those of you who go to Carnival, you know that it goes with the Lent schedule, the same as in Brazil or Mardi Gras. Everything is the Monday and the Tuesday prior to Ash Wednesday. So earlier in the season, like earlier years when Lent starts earlier, Carnival is earlier, etc. When there's a short season, like as we call it, they believe that impacts the turnout because there's just a smaller window between all of the expenses associated with Christmas and all of those things, and then trying to organize a trip to Trinidad for Carnival. So that could be impacting turnout. So the first story you had, they talked to Yuma and they talked to Tribe, and both bands, although they, were sold out, said that they are experiencing lower numbers this year. We have seen beyond that, the parties, all of the big events for Trinidad, events that usually are sold out in a small window. I remember years for Ambush and Soca Brainwash that the tickets would drop at 10 a.m. and the scramble would happen. It would be FET ticket Hunger Games, as I like to call it, and a lot of people like to call it. Like, we're there trying to just do whatever we can. The servers on ticket sites would shut down because of just the flood of people going to ticket sites. Ryan would break the internet yearly before he started using Eventbrite. And it was a big, big thing. So now people would be rushing to their computers for that morning whenever they knew that the tickets were coming. And it would normally drop around Miami Carnival, because I remember one year coming back from Miami and the tickets released while I was in the airport on waiting to get on my plane. Like, the tickets released that Monday morning, Columbus Day morning. So that used to be a big deal. Tickets would sell out very quickly, and the only way to get into a lot of these events, but I'm specifically talking about like Soca Brainwash, Ambush, Sunrise, Breakfast Fete. There are others that sell out too, maybe not as quickly. And then there's some that you're not worried about them selling out. Typically, you can get tickets up until the last. So I was like, all right. They didn't sell out in the first couple days, first week, whatever, to the point where, as of last week, all of the listed events that I talked about still had tickets. The last time my last airing. And that in itself is unheard of. So all of that is making people believe that, hey, Trinidad is experiencing a lower turnout for Carnival this year. Folks are wondering, well, what could be causing it? We're talking about the crime rate, the price of airfare, the way they price gouge on hotels, rental cars, etc. Also, I have a lot of friends I know personally who were not making it this year. So I didn't believe that my friends not going was an indication necessarily of the bigger picture. But a friend pointed out to me, like, yeah, I have a lot of friends not going too. And that makes me feel that, my small sample size may be representative of the bigger picture, that there might just be a lot of people not going. So I took that at face value. I said, okay, maybe Trinidad's having a lower turnout this year. And then you saw the article, right? You saw the news report. So I started thinking about, well, I hope next year, because next year is a longer season. Carnival is going to be in March, the 3rd and 4th of March. And that means a lot more time for people to plan, to make their arrangements, a bigger window between the Christmas season and the Carnival season. So hopefully it's different. But then you see a report from the tourism committee who are saying that they don't know where these people are getting their numbers from, because quite frankly, the actual flights into Trinidad are up by, I think, 10,000 over last year. And that just was counter to what was said otherwise. Because, okay, the band leader for Ronnie and Caro, he said that his band, which is another big band, but it's typically attracts a slightly older crowd, to be honest. He was saying that his band's numbers are up, right? So it could be that some people are opting to play with other bands. There's another big band, Spirit Mass, that is a new big band that's, been a bit of there's been a bit of buzz behind them. So you imagine they're attracting some people. I just didn't think it was that significant that it would change the overall numbers of like Tribe and Yuma that much. And again, both of those bands are still saying they're sold out. They're going to still have great turnouts. Yuma, I think, said they have 4,500 people registered. So understand, even the down numbers are still really good, But with the conflicting reports saying, well, there's more people coming into the country, and some of the bands are saying, well, we have increased our numbers, I'm wondering, what is the actual turnout going to be? What is it going to actually look like? Because if overall the country does not experience a drop-off or whatever, then I feel like there's going to be from their perspective, there's not going to be much reason to make any changes, If people are still paying whatever the airlines are charging, then $2,000 just becomes the ticket price for Trinidad Carnival, which, for context, pre-pandemic, I've gotten tickets as low as $4 something for Trinidad Carnival, average around $700-800 for the time frame, understanding that the airlines are going to increase the prices during that time when they know that a bunch of people are traveling. But the prices I saw this year, I've never seen prices like that in my life before. So, but if they're saying they're getting more people coming into the country, then there may be no reason for the airlines to consider making change, because they're obviously not seeing a diminish in their returns. I'm curious to see what each airline is looking at, but the bottom line is, I don't know exactly, because what I thought I had figured out based on the information I had last week, and this is what I'm seeing for myself, just the party promoters not selling out like week before Carnival. Events that would typically be sold out within hours of ticket release makes me wonder what it's going to look like. And I do have a lot of friends who are there. For as much as I'm saying I have a lot of friends this year who are not going, I do know a lot of people there. So that's why my timeline has been flooded with content from Trinidad this weekend, and it looked great. So, and that's the other thing. Like, looking at the parties this weekend, I didn't see any significant change or drop off in the total numbers. They all looked packed. People were having a great time. I couldn't move on social media without seeing videos from different people from the fets this weekend. So shout out to everybody who's there. Shout out to the promoters involved. It looks great so far. The music all sounds great. I told y'all my thoughts on the potential road march, so I don't want to get back into that. We're not going to rehash that, but shout out to everybody who's there. Shout out to everybody who's going. Please be safe. Keep the content coming. I love to see it. I'm in my feelings, of course. I'm not going to change that, but I'm already not going. So I'm going to live vicariously through all my friends that make it this year. And I want y'all to have a good time. Have a great time. And next year, I am working and making sure I'm going to be back next year. I already got the dates locked in for next year. So, and while we're on the topic of Trinidad and Carnival, so I see Marshall, the biggest soca artist in the world, has this year, he said he wasn't participating because he was studying to get his master's in carnival studies, which is the biggest crock of crap ever, but whatever. So he was not participating in Carnival this year, but then he decided to make a Calypso song and enter in the Calypso Monarch competition. And right now, he made it to the finals. And I think that is a good look for the culture, honestly, because while You have a lot of the younger, like soca is what is prevalent in Trinidad right now. And everyone knows that calypso has not been at the forefront. It's not party music. It's not fet music. It's not as easily marketable outside of the country. So it's it is what it is. It is still a part of the culture, but it hasn't been embraced by the masses to that level. And then when you have the biggest soca artist deciding, well, I'm going to do calypso this year. I'm going to go back to the roots. I'm going to go back to my origins and put out a song, and he's actually drawing attention back to calypso because from what I saw of the semis, like his performance was great. I watched a video of his performance. It looked amazing. And it is highlighting an aspect of the culture that has been under highlighted, has been underutilized, has been underemphasized in years. And especially when you don't have the Soca Monarch competition. And I understand if I'm losing some people, and that's fine, but this is my thing. I'm going to talk about it. You have a part of the culture that has not been able to enjoy the spotlight. It's good to see that there's a renewed interest in it. I love seeing a renewed interest in steel pan. I love seeing a renewed interest in calypso. I like seeing a return to creative costumes for the road. I love seeing a return to creative mass costumes. So all of the things that still highlight some of the origins or some of the things that are being lost as the experience is being changed and modernized, I like seeing that those things still have their cultural relevance and are still being given the level of attention that they deserve. So Marshall competing, he is in the finals, and quite frankly, he stands a good chance of taking it because the song, people love it. Everybody who knows Marshall Montano knows he can perform. So I don't think that's anybody's questioning his ability to put on a show. And I believe, because I forgot to look this up before I started, but I believe that's one of the things that he's never won. He's never won the Mashkra. He's never been the Calypso Monarch. So, and that used to be a big deal pre the days when Soca took over. So like for him to win Calypso Monarch this year, I think would be, it would be good for him, but I think it would also be good in terms of attracting just different people and viewers to it. Now, that said, and this is the conspiracy theorist in me. I remember talking to my mother before when he was entering in the semis, and I said, "Ma, there's no way them judges are not going to push Marshall through to the finals. Like, I don't care. He could go up there and sing the alphabet. He could stand in one place and hum a tune. He is making it past the semis. He will be in the finals because there's no way they're going to miss out on the marketing opportunity of having Marshall in the finals at the Mashkra night, and by knocking him out in the semifinal round." So I just knew he was always going to be in the finals. But then I saw the performance and I'm like, oh, okay, they didn't have to cheat for him. Like, it didn't have to be the fix didn't have to be in. The man actually brought it. And from what I was told from the people there, he put on the best show of the night. And as somebody who has been a performer and competitor, he knows that from the semis to the finals, I'm going to step the game up. So whatever he did last week, you can expect magnified by the time the Mashkra finals is so, and the Calypso Monarch. So shout out to Marshall. Big up everybody on the island. I hope you guys are enjoying. And with that, I think we are off Trinidad Carnival, but I had to get that out the way first because, like I said, that is near and dear to my heart. And right now, segueing off of the topic of Trinidad Carnival, because we did talk about the crime being a thing that the mass bands alluded to as part of the reason for the diminished turnout. And honestly, part of the pushback from the tourism ministry was asking, well, what metric are they using? What information do they have that tells them that crime is deterring people from coming? Because a lot of them mentioned that, they think it's the crime, blah, blah, blah. That's making some people wary. And of course, if you are in the Ministry of Tourism, you do not want that narrative to have any legs, to gain any kind of traction, to have people thinking that crime is an issue in Trinidad. Although we all know it is. And I think we all are fully aware, or the folks, when I say we all, the folks that live in Trinidad or who travel to Trinidad often on and off season for Carnival know that around Carnival time, the police and the military are on high alert. It's like all hands on deck. You can't go far without seeing police driving around, cars everywhere, the military everywhere. And you can see the contrast in like traveling to Trinidad any other time of year where the tourism is not as prevalent, because we know Trinidad is not a big tourist spot outside of Carnival. It's not the driving force of their economy. So it's not something that they necessarily harp on outside of Carnival season. That's fair. But when you travel to Trinidad outside of that time, you don't see the level of police and military people out and about on patrol and things like that. So we understand that you guys know that the crime is an issue because you do the things to address it at the time that it is most important for you to address it, which is when you have 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people coming to the country, whether they are nationals returning or first timers or seasoned veterans, but aren't actually Trinidad nationals. Whatever it is, when you have what they said, I think is like 60 something flights booked this year, you have 60 something thousand people coming to your country in one little space of time. Yeah, you're going to make arrangements to make sure that you keep those people safe, because you understand the stain in the black eye that comes from those individuals getting hurt, getting killed, getting kidnapped, etc. Not wishing that on anybody or anything. Just saying like that causes that is bigger than when it happens throughout the year to the citizens. Because yes, that's also tragic, but then it becomes an internal thing versus when a national from the US or the UK or Canada or wherever says that, yeah, they went to Trinidad for vacation for Carnival and these things happened to them. So you put the things in place, you put the pieces in place to minimize the impact of crime during the Carnival season. We get that. That being said, it's not unfair to say that that people believe that for like a first timer or whatever, that might have an impact on some people deciding, yo, I'm hearing that it's crazy down there right now, or that the numbers are going up. That may impact some people's decision to go. It would not have impacted mine, but of course, I'm in a different position. I lived in Trinidad. I was born in Trinidad. I was raised in Trinidad. So I know how to navigate around staying away from certain things for the most part. And there's no perfect solution to that. But it's like there's ways to mitigate being put in situations where you may become a victim of a crime. So that said, I'm transitioning now to touch on the uproar from the list put out by the U.S. State Department. And honestly, even saying it like that is a little unfair, because it's not like they suddenly were sitting around and decided today to put out a list, right? So this hit social media this week. It was on the Shade Room and a couple other sites that the U.S. State Department upgraded a couple countries to a level 3, which a level 3 for them is is reconsider travel. And at first, like, I saw memes and everything was funny, because on the list at the time, upgraded to level 3 was what was noticeable for us was Jamaica. And then they even had, like, on the second slide where they talked about the Bahamas was also upgraded. Then on another slide, they mentioned other countries on the list. Trinidad and Tobago was there as well. And at first, I read it and didn't really think much of it until I started to see people like posting and making memes, and memes are funny, and I didn't think anything about that. But then I started to see like people commenting. I saw some internet comedians making videos about it that made me believe that they were like truly upset about the placement on this list, because there were a lot of comparisons to the U.S. saying, how dare the U.S. put people on a list when they got this and that, and pointing out, there's so many mass shootings in the U.S. And like the ones that were funny to me was when they were like, I'm from Baltimore, so I'd rather get shot in Montego Bay than wherever. You know what I'm saying? Like, one from D.C. Like, I'd rather get shot in Montego Bay than shot in D.C. Because, yes, like, there's crime everywhere. That's not new information. There's crime everywhere. But I realized that when I saw how many people were reacting and saw how many people were reacting negatively, that some folks just didn't, they took this way more seriously and kind of out of context, and either have never seen this before or have seen it and chose not to pay attention to it. So the first of all, most of your arguments, most of the things that I've seen online have been I don't want to say ridiculous, but they've just not made any sense or any kind of context, right? So the State Department has a travel advisory list that they have for just the rest of the world, as far as for their client, for U.S. citizens. This is for if the average citizen who is traveling to a place that may want to know, hey, what are the advisories for these places? And it's 4 levels. It's 1, use your regular normal amount of caution. 2, elevated, use elevated caution. Just be careful. 3, reconsider travel. And 4, do not travel. And those are the 4 levels. And if you know all of this, then don't bear with me for a second as I go through it, because I don't want to lose anybody who may not have known this, because there are people who don't realize these things. For context, most of the countries that were elevated have been on the list for a while for one reason or the next, because all they're doing is gathering data on what's happening in the country in terms of crime. So for the people who are saying, yo, y'all putting people on a list and blah, 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 and all this other stuff, and meanwhile, America has all these problems. Right, correct. America can't put America on a do not like, this is the State Department, and this is their travel advisories. So I cannot put myself on a travel advisory because you already live here. So I can't tell you should reconsider travel to where you live. So that argument, when people posted that, I was like, I don't even understand what you're trying to say. Why don't they put themselves on the list? Right, because you already live here. Also, they're not telling people you can't go. They're not stopping you. It's not a ban, but they want to make sure, they're making sure that you have all the necessary information when you plan your trip, because at the end of the advisories always comes if you still plan on traveling, use these precautions while traveling. And it's all common sense, like good advice stuff. So it's like, hey, be careful going to certain places. These are some of the crimes that are being reported. And none of them are lies. That's the other part of it. Like, it's all statistical data that's all true because it's all being gathered from that country. Like, for example, like they elevated the Bahamas from a level 1 to a level 2. So a level 2 is just use caution. So yes, it is an elevation from a level 1, which is no precautions or just regular precautions. But it's like they did that because they said for the year so far, there's been 18 homicides. So to put that in context, and I don't want to hear about the stats and the numbers of things that are happening in the U.S. Yes, the U.S. is nuts. Ain't nobody debating that. But for a nation as small as the Bahamas to say they've had 18 homicides in this small window of time, and if that's a record for them, then yeah, I want to let my citizens know that, hey, if you plan on going here, here's the information we have gathered. So use caution. Simple as that. I don't even understand what people's problem, what people got upset with. I saw things like, yo, and I saw comments that I looked at where you don't even understand what's happening, because they were like, oh, the nerve of America to put Jamaica on the list. What about places like Russia and Ukraine? And I had to comment. I was like, yeah, those places exist. Jamaica was elevated to a level 3 from a level 2 because of rising crime. Russia and the Ukraine are already level 4. Those are already do not travel. So this news is only because there was a slight change, and these changes happen all the time. So even you're trying to like make a different argument or make a bigger argument about it was dumb, because you're using examples of places that are already on the list. Like, no, don't travel to war zones. I don't need to tell you that because it's been on the list. In fact, it was low key. It was borderline irresponsible reporting by the places that reported it, because they offered. I read the captions, and they offered no context. Like, many of us who travel to Trinidad know that Trinidad has been on that list forever. Like, that's not new. Every year, it's like, hey, we're advising against travel to Trinidad. If you don't know that, and this is information to you, let me tell you, because I was talking to Dre and a couple other people about it. It's like, yo, dog, Trinidad's always on the list, right? Trinidad's crime is nuts. It is to the point that, like, I talked to people there, and they were even saying like, yeah, it's a little nuts. It's a little crazy down here right now. My sister told me that. Like, they are getting the news reports daily. And we have to be honest about ourselves, because we talk about all the problems with America. Yeah, mass shootings and everything that happens in America is crazy. But beyond the things that are sensationalized and in the headlines, there's a lot of crime in general in places that we live and we go. Because we live here, we do have a certain level of awareness on how to navigate around some of these places. So, like, example, when I go Trinidad, because I'm a little bit more familiar, I know, hey, let me not go these places at night. Let me not, and I'm not going to call no names or anything right now to not be, unnecessarily inflammatory. But it's just like, I know there's places that I can and cannot go. I know there's times not to go. I know there's some places like, yo, folks like, I'm gonna come meet you out there, but I'm gonna come meet you down in town. So don't come straight here. You know what I'm saying? We all know that. So this isn't news to anybody. Same thing for anywhere you go. But from the outside, because I don't know how to navigate those places, I'm going to tell my people, hey, here are the numbers I'm seeing from this country. Those numbers I don't know how those numbers are specific to this parish or this town or this city. So this country had this many homicides, break-ins, kidnappings, etc. for this year. Use caution if you go there. I'm sorry, guys. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, absolutely nothing wrong with saying that. And for context, for those of you who are talking about like America, talking about other people, and I don't even feel like caping for America right now, but it's like, when something does not make sense, I have to apply a little bit of logic to when I'm thinking about it. There are countries that have America on their lists in terms of using caution when traveling, because those countries are telling their tourists, hey, if you go to America, literally it reads things like high levels of gun violence, high levels of this, high levels of that. So even if they may not say do not travel, it's still warning and cautioning their citizens, hey, if you travel to America, here are some of the things. Gun violence is high. A lot of people own guns. These crimes are high. Use caution when moving in these certain areas. And so that was all it was. So I hope that that I was able in this to offer some context to the people who were all up in arms because of the travel advisories. They are just advisories to citizens. If you don't agree with them, you don't have to. They didn't tell anybody don't go to the countries. They are not there. This is one of those times there's no racism attached to it. They are just simply reporting numbers. And you can still travel. Like, just use caution when you travel. And they literally, if you read the advisory, tell you some of the cautions to use when traveling. And more importantly, when you are a national from those places that are living abroad, you kind of know how to navigate the space. But if I am a tourist and have never been somewhere, yeah, I want to read the State Department's report on this country because I need to know a little bit about it before I go. And I want to use that information to make informed decisions about how I move when in that country. So I think the reporting on this was a little unnecessarily inflammatory, but it did what it was supposed to do, right? It got people talking. It got y'all talking. It got people sending it to me like, yo, could you believe they said this about you? And that's really how it got on my radar to make it onto the podcast today. Because when people are sending it to me and talking about, can you believe they said this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I can. Like, these countries have been on the thing for, they're advisories about these countries that have been in place forever, for years. They move, they change, they go up, they go down based on what is being reported from the countries. And those reports are factual. In fact, I would argue that some of those numbers are low for what's actually happening. I don't think they have a beat on how much is actually happening that isn't getting reported to the point where it's making it to international places. So y'all keep acting like this thing was so crazy, and travel as you want to, but just use the necessary cautions when doing so. So that is that. I hope y'all found that useful. And for those of y'all who still mad about it, just, I don't know what to say. I can't help y'all. The Grammys. Listen, like I said, I had a lot of other topics on here, and I knew when I saw the news this morning, I could not even get to them because I was like, yeah, the Grammy. I'm glad I didn't record last night. I really am. So we're going to start we're gonna keep things in the Caribbean for a minute, and we're gonna start. Big up to Theron Thomas for winning Songwriter of the Year, straight out of St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. Big up all my VI crew, the Hooky Life team, all of my Virgin Island friends, Jackie, Andy, everyone like that. I can't even name all of y'all, but big up the VI, big up Theron Thomas, first black man, and this is from his Instagram page. So I didn't get a chance to research whether he was or he wasn't, but why would he lie, right? First black man to win Songwriter of the Year, non-classical. He worked on a lot of big songs that we all know. Most notably for me is All My Life, Lil Durk and J. Cole, because, you know, I actually like that track. I really do. So this was big. This was a big win for him. And shout out to him. I loved his acceptance speech. It was great. Very, very VI, and I loved it. Loved every second of it. So shout out to him. But then it took like, the news kind of took a turn. I was seeing some of this last night and didn't even get a chance to really focus in on it. But so apparently Killer Mike won Rap Album of the Year, and shout out to him. His album was great. He really had a really good album this year, so well deserved. Some people were saying, you know, other albums, but I didn't have a dog in that fight, so I thought it was a good win. I listened to his album. I enjoyed it. He won for Rap Album of the Year and a couple other categories, but then he was arrested that night, right? And I didn't get a chance to look up to see the result of it, but I know as I was following it on Twitter, X, whatever, they were saying that it was for a misdemeanor and it wasn't related to anything that happened at the Grammys itself. So they believed he would be released shortly and all of this stuff. And like that kind of rubbed me the wrong way when it was like, I didn't get a chance to look at what it was for. And so I may end up like tomorrow saying, damn, I shouldn't have said all of that. But because I didn't get a chance to say what it was for, I will say if the way the attitudes of the folks involved were seeming like it wasn't such a big deal at the time, I feel like, okay, let's say it was for a warrant or let's say it was for something minor. Like if you're at the Grammys and someone just won an award, not saying that they should be absolved from like dealing with whatever crimes they committed, because obviously they still got to deal with it. But I've seen too many instances with celebrities where they are allowed to turn themselves in. Now, I don't know the backstory, the history of this, if he was aware of it, if he was told, if he refused to turn himself in prior. And if anybody knows, feel free to hit me up, comment, let me know if there's more to this. I'm going to look it up once I get off the air. But, you know, I did want to say that I didn't like the optics after winning the award. To be arrested for something that was not an emergency situation. It wasn't like, oh, it was actively happening and we need to detain him to keep the situation under control. Like if that's not what it is, then it just felt like this could have been more of a, hey, our attorneys work with your attorneys and we need you to turn yourself in, blah, blah, blah. Like there's ways that I have seen these things handled that did not have to be this negative stain on what is something that is supposed to be kind of a celebration. And it seems like when it's associated with hip hop and rap, that it's always when there's an opportunity to I'm not going to say shame rappers, when there's an opportunity to attach like these type of things to it, they take it. Like if you could arrest a rapper at the Grammys, you take that opportunity. And that just seems like why? Like, again, I'm not talking about if it was like a serious crime, a felony, something he did, you've been looking for him, blah, 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 or it's something that's happening right here and right now, and boom, yo, this went down and we arrested him. But like, if you're telling me it was a misdemeanor and he's probably going to be released that night and all of this other things, I feel like there were ways, like he's a public figure. He's a celebrity. Like you had other options. I thought. I could be wrong. I don't like speaking on things I don't know fully, but I do know I've seen enough of how this goes down. Everybody who knows me knows I have. And like, there are other ways that this could have been handled that didn't have to be as headline grabbing. But of course, when you do it like this, you grab headlines while doing it. And I feel like that was part of it too, that they wanted to arrest the rapper at the Grammys. You know what I'm saying? So Um, outside of the arrest, shout out to Killer Mike for the wins. I hope everything works out. I didn't get to read the rest of it, but I will. Uh, also, I didn't like. I understand there's a lot of awards to give out. There's a lot of show, and if they tried to, and we would not watch all of that, right? We wouldn't watch the whole show. But then I just didn't like some of the categories that were in the untelevised portion, and that is bringing me to where I'm getting with the end of this with the speech. But it's like, like SZA was winning awards untelevised. It was to the point that I didn't realize the Grammys had started. I'm seeing on my timeline they're saying so and so is a Grammy winner now, and Tyler won a Grammy, and all of these Grammys are happening, and it's like the afternoon. I'm like, wait, the Grammys is on already? But I realized, like, no, these were just in the untelevised portion. So I just couldn't help but notice, like, how many black and brown faces were getting their awards off screen. And that's not saying that people didn't win on screen, but it's like, I think a little bit better needs to be done. Like, I think best rap album to me is too big a category when rap and hip hop music is such a major part of the culture in general, of music in America. So for that album to be one of the ones that's done untelevised, it does rub me the wrong way with regards to the Grammys. I feel like there are smaller awards, smaller categories that you can place in there that are not necessarily as impactful, but like best rap album should absolutely have been a televised Grammy, right? Which brings me to the speech, and I have a lot of thoughts about the speech. Shout out to Jay-Z. I'm gonna preface this by saying, if you don't know this about me already, Jay-Z is my favorite rapper since Ain't No with Foxy Brown to now. So my bias usually I try to put it aside, but I can't when it comes to Jay-Z. I'm not gonna pretend in this instance. So I wake up and I get sent the speech, but I don't get sent the whole speech. I only get the tail end of it, the part where he starts talking about, and it's subjective. And I'm not going to play it because I think everyone has seen it. And if you haven't seen it by now, it's on YouTube. If you look up Jay-Z Grammy acceptance speech, you can see the whole speech on YouTube. So I get sent the part where he talks about Beyonce and doesn't mention her, but we know who he's talking about because she's right there and she's embarrassed. Also, I love the fact that he had Blue Ivy on stage with him. That looked great. So I get sent the clip and I watched it, and at first I was like, yo, is Hov all right? Like it felt so unhinged to watch him. Like it just seemed like in the moment he wasn't being very sophisticated. He wasn't being very articulate. It was like he was just like, I hate to say it like this. It gave me Kanye vibes, like watching him up there, like, just it's all subjective, but the person who's won the most Grammys has never won album of the year, so it don't even add up. Like, I was like, Jay, what are you talking about? And that's the problem with social media. You guys chop things up in such a way that it's meant to be inflammatory and it's meant to be headline gathering, and it takes so many things out of context. So when you see that, and it does look like Jay-Z standing up for his wife, so, and that's great. It looks like Jay-Z is taking a shot at the Grammys on behalf of his wife, and you lose the whole context of the speech because you don't hear any of what came before it. So like, my girl sent it to me and she was equally shy. She was like, yo, this and she's not as big a Jay-Z fan, right? So we're both kind of saying the same thing. Like, this does look a little nuts. The way he sounds, like, yeah, he's standing up for B, and I love that because I'm also a big Beyonce fan. So you see that in the speech, but what you don't get is how we got there. So I was like, yeah, I got to find the whole thing. Easy enough, quick enough Google search, like, or YouTube search, and got the rest of the speech. And I had to walk back everything I thought about it when I heard the rest of it. I was so wrong. It was not unhinged. It was not Kanye-esque at all. It was the complete opposite of that. It was I thought he smoked the speech. And I don't even think this is my fandom talking, because I was being objective at the time when I thought he sounded nuts. And then when I got to really pay attention to what was said, it was like, nah, this was actually great, and it was needed. It was necessary. So all that build up and intro, right? Jay-Z won the you know what's crazy? I don't want to get the name of it wrong, because I know it was the Dr. Dre Global Impact Award. This was the first time. And they awarded it to Jay-Z. And just the name of the award itself, it's a thing where, like, it's like the Lifetime Achievement Award. Is something that the recipient knows they're getting. So it's not like you're nominated in this category and it might be you. It might be like, no, like, you know, before you go in there that this is something you're receiving. So he came in there prepared. And he starts by shouting out Dre. He appreciates the award and starts by shouting out Dre for his impact and what he has done for hip hop and where he has taken it, and the things that, you know, goes back to Run DMC, but comes to Dre and where he put the West Coast. And it's all very, you know, standard, giving a speech, like very standard acceptance speech that I'm going to appreciate and recognize the pioneers that came before me, especially the person for whom the award is named is in attendance. So I'm definitely going to shout him out, someone who I've had a personal relationship with, and highlight that. Cool. And then he shifts into the part where people started to realize what was happening. Like, he pointed out when Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff boycotted the Grammys, made some jokes about, you know, how it wasn't a good boycott because they boycotted the Grammys, then went and watched it from the hotel, and talking about when he boycotted and kind of did the same thing. So took a little jab at himself. Like, it was all good. It was all well thought out. I enjoyed listening to it. And then but the main point of it was talking about times where the Grammys did not necessarily represent or recognize hip hop and its contribution to to music and to American music in the way that was necessary. That was the takeaway. That, I believe, was what was meant to be taken away from that speech in that moment. It wasn't just about the, like, yeah, you highlight the thing about Beyonce, but like that wasn't at the core of the speech. And that gets lost when you cut out that first part to just show that, because now you present him as this really supportive husband who just picked the wrong time to get his message across, or this unhinged husband who is just caping for his wife. Either way, there is so much room there to paint him in a negative light. And some people will still, even after listening to the whole thing. But definitely, if you just get that one little portion, there is so much room there to paint him in a negative light that you ignore the entirety of the speech and what was meant to say. So you highlight that, hey, the Grammys has not always gotten it right with dealing with hip hop. And we have boycotted. We have sat out the Grammys because of their treatment of us. And that's kind of always been a thing within Black culture in America, within the award shows, where when we feel like we are being treated unfairly, we will sit out certain shows, but like not everyone does it. And when everyone doesn't do it, you kind of feel like it's lessening the impact. Even if the big stars are doing it, if the lesser stars are showing up, then cool, we'll give them the Grammys and we'll have them perform. We will have them present, and we'll put them front and center, and blah, 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 and all of these other things. So it's like, how do you affect the change? Well, you affect change, to me, by being there, accepting the award, doing your speech, because they want you there. They want you there. They want Beyonce there. So you get the award, you accept the speech, but then in the speech, you call them out. But you don't do it in a way that is tactless, that is aggressive, that is unnecessarily inflammatory. You say it like it is. in something that will capture headlines and will get people talking and will actually remind people of things that they probably weren't thinking about. Because he talked about the year he was nominated, 98. That's the year that DMX came out. DMX dropped It's Dark and Hell is Hot and Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Bones, same year. That's when artists were not doing that, right? Like rap artists now, I know you'll see artists will drop 3 albums in a year, no big deal. Have one single, like you could legitimately go the whole year and not know half of the songs on the album if you're not paying close attention or if you don't follow that artist. But back in the 90s, one album is getting you a whole summer. You got the whole summer to run with that one album. You put out an album every couple of years, really, because you could really milk an album. The music was not as readily accessible. You had to hear it on the radio. You had to go out and buy the album. I remember buying all these albums. So I'm like, that was then. And DMX dropped 2. And both of those albums are classics to me. It's Dark and Hell is Hot and Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Bone. I can play both those albums now, no skips. So Jay-Z's point was he dropped both of these #1 albums and he's not even nominated, but y'all nominated me. I can't remember what Jay-Z had, if it was In My Lifetime or Hard Knock Life in 98. Might have been Hard Knock Life, but either way. He was like, nah, like DMX should have at least been nominated. So he boycotted. He did not go to the Grammys that year. And Jay-Z wasn't the artist he is now. So it didn't have the impact then that something like that has now. But he pointed out the boycotts. He pointed out the not going and the not showing up. And I think in realizing that in itself, that's not working alone. That's not, by itself, that's great, but it's not really making a change. And the change is the recognition. The change is the highlighting the music and the culture that is so popular and so prevalent in America right now, but not getting the recognition award-wise. So it's like, okay, I'm going to tell y'all, look, we love y'all. We just want y'all to get it right. We want y'all to see that these awards are not just for this. If it was just for this, then cool, make it that. But right now, in this country, the top 4 awards are the Oscars, the Emmys, the Grammys, and the Tonys. Those are seen as the pinnacle within their chosen fields: movies, TV, music, and stage. So if we are being dominant in a place, then we want the recognition from the thing that has been determined to be the top of that place. Now we can have the discussion about why should we want that validation and why should we want that recognition? We should have our own. We can have that discussion, and that's a fair position to take. And I'm not against that position either. But I feel like when we take that position, then we start to minimize the Theron Thomases and the Killer Mikes and the people who win when they do win. Like, we can't applaud you when you win and say, yo, this is a big deal, this is great. And then when we don't win, say, F that, like, yo, it shouldn't matter anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's not our thing. Like, we have to pick. I believe we have to decide. Either it matters or it doesn't. And if it matters, then cool. Let us say, no, we want our proper recognition. Because yes, it is subjective. Music and tastes and opinions are all subjective. And there's plenty of times, and I love how he said this, like, some of you are going to feel you were robbed. Some of you are going to be robbed. And some of y'all should not have been nominated. Because those are facts. And you could say he's taking shots and taking jabs, but like, yo, when I get nervous, I tell the truth was the best line of the night. It really was. When I get nervous, I tell the truth. Because he was saying, yo, no, don't, I'm bugging, but no, I'm being honest. Like, I am being honest. Some of y'all are in these categories and in these competitions and should not have been there. Meanwhile, some of y'all had the best project and are not going to get the award. And the people who are making the decision, again, it is subjective. You are going to love something that someone else may think was not great. You're going to create something that someone is going to love and someone's going to think, what is this? So I understand that part of it, but I also understand that when you have things that are definitely showing you that the masses, the overwhelming majority of people are collectively saying, this is a great body of work right here. and that thing gets ignored or snubbed, then yes, you're going to have people upset. So there does need to be a balance. There does need to be some looking at these things when deciding who to nominate and who to award. And I understand it's not always going to be easy. You're not always going to get it right. But I feel like if you got it right more often than not, that the times that you don't, people aren't going to care as much. And then if you show the level of respect to the things, like again, you look at the untelevised categories. I'm not saying that they were all for categories with a lot of black musicians. I don't know that they were. You know, I did not see all of the untelevised categories, and I did not research it before recording because that is not my point. My point is when I looked at some of those categories, specifically Rap Album of the Year, I do not understand why in 2024, with the impact and the overall popularity of hip hop music, that would be one of those categories that you choose not to televise. And that, I think, is what Jay-Z was still alluding to within his speech, that yes, you're making progress and we want y'all to make more progress. We want you guys to be better. And if you are better, we will show up. And he said that, like, the end of the speech where he talks to, and the end of the speech didn't specifically say that. It was more talking to us. It was talking to the creatives. It was talking to the rappers, the musicians, the athletes, the artists, whoever. If you're doing something, don't worry about not receiving the praise and not receiving the awards and not getting the accolades that you want in that moment. Just keep doing it. Continue to persevere. Whether you have 10 views, whether you have 1 million views, whether you're getting $10, whether you're getting $1 million, if this is something you're passionate about, keep on doing that thing until you get, and if you know you're good at it, keep doing it until you achieve the thing that you're trying to achieve. Eventually, they will have to recognize you. So the speech was impactful and it had a much bigger meaning than what social media, I'm not even going to say what social media tried to minimize it to. Because yes, of course, he made the point about Beyonce. And of course, we are all going to sit here and like we saw Beyonce and we kind of felt a little secondhand embarrassment on her behalf because, you know, she was kind of put on the spot, but it was a factual statement. Beyonce has never won Album of the Year. And like her or love her or hate her, however you feel about Beyonce, there was a couple of Album of the Years in there. Ironically, and I thought about this, but then I heard someone else mention it, and I was like, damn, they said it first. But either way, I was like, one of the times that Beyonce did not win was another time of secondhand embarrassment where Kanye took the mic from Taylor Swift to talk about Beyonce had the best album. Like, now, this is a perfect example of kind of right message, wrong messenger, or maybe not right message, wrong messenger, but like the way to do it. So the way Kanye did it was in Kanye fashion, run up on stage, snatch the mic, and completely steal her moment from her to shine light on someone else. And to me, that put more of the emphasis on you and your antics and never fully highlighted the person you tried to highlight, because we didn't talk about Beyonce as much then. Like, yeah, a lot of us agreed. I can't remember if that was I Am Sasha Fierce, but like a lot of us agreed that should have beat Taylor Swift that year. And it's funny that Beyonce and Taylor Swift is still the topic to this day. But like the way Jay-Z did it for me was more elegant, more eloquent, made more sense, because he did not overshadow or take from anybody else's moment. He used his own moment to highlight something that he thought did not make sense in general. That several of her bodies of work have been well-crafted albums, not just a few singles or a few bops or a few songs that like you can listen to and move. Like albums start to finish, well-crafted, no skips, just put it on and play. And she's never won Album of the Year. Now she has won the most Grammys, so I'm not going to be mad that she never won Album of the Year when she has more Grammys than everybody else. So, but I get what he's trying to say. I get his point. At the end of the day, we got to just continue to persevere. And there's nothing wrong with continuing to say, no, I'm going to show up until I win this. I'm going to show up until you give me the thing that I deserve. But I'm going to keep working at it, and I'm not going to beg you for it either. because we're not begging. We're not saying, oh, please, we want acceptance. No, we're saying, all right, boycotting doesn't make sense because we're not boycotting means that we are conceding that we are not a part of this. And that, I think, is a retreat. That, I think, is giving up to say, okay, we don't want this anymore. We're going to make our own. Cool. We can do that too. But if these are going to be recognized as the top, then we want these too. Because if I'm making a movie and I'm acting every bit as good as this other person, and I am putting on as good a performance, and I'm directing as well, and I'm doing all of these things on the same level as these other people, then no, we're going to do it until you have no choice but to recognize us amongst these other people. And I just like that mentality more so than, oh, we're gonna go and do our own thing. But that is just me. But shout to Jay-Z, shout to everybody, shout to all the winners and Beyonce. And ironically, again, Taylor Swift won Album of the Year. In the midst of all of it. Good old Taylor Swift and Album of the Year. I don't have a lot to say about that because the funny thing is I didn't even realize. I didn't know Taylor Swift was nominated. I wasn't really paying attention. Also, like I don't know a single Taylor Swift song. I can't. I couldn't for the life of me name a Taylor Swift song, so I don't know anything off of this album. So, but that doesn't mean that her relevance was not there because obviously, like her fan base is super loyal. So, which does bring me to Shannon Sharpe, because first off, shout out to Unc, because Shannon Sharpe is having a year. Him and Ocho, they are having a year in this creator space, and I am loving it. Like, and me even saying like being happy for them is kind of like, what does that even mean? Like, these dudes are megastars, and we're megastars before any of this podcasting and content space. But to watch someone who has excelled and won at every level now jump into this content space and start to win at that it's phenomenal to watch. It's inspiring to watch, and I love seeing it. I love Club Shay Shay. I love the Nightcap Show. Him and Ocho are great. Love seeing him on First Take. Like, I'm a Shannon Sharpe fan, so when he does stuff and it's great, I'm with it. I'm watching it, and I feel like he got a lot of flack for his Taylor Swift comment that comes back to the like paying attention to the whole thing versus just reacting to it. And I think a lot of the flack was unfair. And I'm not going to spend too long on this, but I just feel it's when I watched the entire thing, because at first you see the clips. There's another case of I was sent the clip that just showed the middle part where he talked about her moving the needle, and I never saw the entirety of the episode. So I had to go back and watch the episode because I was like, well, let me see, how do we get here? Like, what even brought us to saying this? Because like a lot of things, when something goes against what we believe, we act like it has to be false. Or if something goes against what we love, we don't want to hear it. Like, we don't want to deal with things that may be contrary to how we already feel. So it's like with the travel advisory, where if you're from Jamaica, you're from the Bahamas, you're from Trinidad, and you see someone telling people, hey, don't travel here or don't go here because of crime, you immediately are ready to fight back. But if you take a step back, you might see that, well, what they're saying isn't completely false. So it's not entirely off base. And you may never arrive there. But I dealt with this with quite a few Beyonce fans who I saw long articles about how wrong Shannon Sharpe was, and he's a coon, and he shouldn't have said this, and he was tap dancing, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, all right, well, let me go hear what he said, because again, I'm a Beyonce fan. Right now, I could not name one Taylor Swift song. For me to know a Taylor Swift song, it might be that it is played and somebody's like, oh, that's Taylor Swift. I'm like, oh, I heard that in a movie or something. Like, I don't know. I don't know a single Taylor Swift song. I'm not her demo. Meanwhile, biggest Beyonce fan. There are albums of Beyonce that I can recite the words start to finish. So I love Beyonce. And those two artists do not compare in my mind. On my no, there's just no comparison. Beyonce to Taylor Swift, right? So I immediately had the same reaction most people had when they heard the comments, like, what is Shannon Sharpe talking about? But when I was done being mad, because I was mad at first, when I was done being mad, I was like, all right, well, is there any validity to what he's saying? Let me go listen to the whole interview. And I listened to the rest of the interview, and I was like, I don't necessarily disagree with his point right now, because I'm like, we are not talking about who is your favorite artist, right? He was not asking you which artist do you love more, who do you have more albums of, who's the better performer, who's the better singer, who's the better dancer. We're not talking about them from one period of time to the next. It was none of that. He was saying right now, today, she moves the needle more than even Beyonce, and basing that on what he's seeing, working at ESPN, being involved with the NFL, watching them move mountains around her every move, citing the $331 million of value that she's generated for the NFL and the Chiefs. And I don't know, I think it's Apex Media or Apex Consulting Group. I don't know the metric they use to figure that out. I'm not a finance person, so I don't know what they were looking at. But if those are the numbers that they're presenting to the NFL, and those are the numbers that the NFL and whoever is presenting to us, then I'm just not educated enough to argue with them on them, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me whether it's true or not. Like, if that's what you guys are saying you're getting from this, none of that is impacting me. So I just have no choice but to believe you, because I don't care enough to not believe you. And I know last week I said, I was tired of seeing Taylor Swift, on the screen and all this other stuff. But then I realized, like, I watched The Herd earlier this week, and Colin Cowherd made a valuable point that I had to take stock of, because I'm big on, changing an opinion when presented with new information. And he really broke down how much she's even on the screen. And I had to concede it wasn't that much. I think it was like, he said it was like 25 seconds or 40 something seconds of a 3-hour game. And in reality, if they weren't panning to her, they're panning to other stuff. Now, yes, you would like it to be stuff that's more associated, affiliated with the game, but so what if it's not? Like, there was no point that the camera was on Taylor Swift that you missed a play. You didn't miss a touchdown because they were focused on Taylor Swift. You didn't miss a run. You didn't miss anything. While the gameplay was on, the camera was on the game. So it's like, does it really bother me that much? And I think I got caught up in the Taylor Swift hype train too, where, like, I didn't want to see, because it was a lot, and it seems like a lot. And even though you can accumulate it to only 25 seconds, yes, if every time Travis Kelce does something, every time the Chiefs do something, you pan to Taylor Swift, it does seem like a lot. But in the grand scheme of things, is it detracting or taking anything away from the game? It really isn't. So I had to walk back how I felt about it, because, like, what am I actually really even mad about in this moment? Then I start to hear, like, the numbers and the generators. So even, like, on The Herd, Colin Cowherd was saying that when he talked about Taylor Swift, his segment got sent to another show did his segment, and it became like one of the highest rated things. Like, the numbers shot up, right? So these are people that are watching the metrics from when they do a thing and they talk about her, and they're seeing their viewership. The NFL is saying, yeah, we have generated this much in revenue from this. So if the people on the inside are seeing that this young lady is just showing up places and they're getting money by her presence, that is moving the needle in a way that not a lot of people that I can think of can do right now. And in fairness to, like I said, in fairness to Shannon Sharpe, he didn't interject Beyonce's name into it. Like, he said he doesn't see anybody doing it. Ocho said Beyonce, and Shannon just stuck to his guns on his original statement. Like, I don't think she could. And even Ocho's premise was, imagine, like, Beyonce, not married, younger, dating, blah, blah, blah. So even his premise was fictitious, because that's not Beyonce's reality right now. She's not going to games. She's not doing these things. So we have no way of knowing. all we can see is what's happening, and right now what's happening, Taylor Swift was moving the needle in ways that nobody else is doing in the NFL, to the point where like the guys that made Swag Surf went on TMZ and said, like, listen, our numbers from since the day that she swag surfed at the party or whatever, like from that day to now, he said their streams were up 700% and their followers and subscriptions went up. They're actively generating additional eyes on them, actively generating additional exposure to a song that is however old swag surfing is. Like, we done swag surfed at every brunch, every party. Like, we've been doing and playing that song all over the place. Taylor Swift is on the TV for 3 seconds swag surfing, and that immediately attracts more attention to them. Like, nah, bro, those are factual instances that no matter how you feel about the argument and what was said, I cannot disregard what he said as just nonsense, because I'm watching it. Like, nah, bro. Like, from his perspective, where he sits daily or every Monday and Tuesday at ESPN and covering sports and covering football and being in the media for how many years he's been in the media, he has not seen anybody move the needle like Taylor Swift. Now, I'm not going to get with the Michael Jackson comparison. That's where I think Unc was bugging, and we will never agree on that, because to me, Mike was the GOAT, but below Mike, yeah, I don't know that Beyonce moves the needle more than Taylor Swift right now. I'm not saying she can't, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about whether or not she can. Has she? Now, Beyonce might be able to if she really wanted to come out and do what, you know what I'm saying? Put herself out there right now, but that's it for me and the Taylor Swift hate. I have no more Taylor Swift hate coming. Like, do what you do. And it doesn't matter, because the Super Bowl is this coming weekend. So the NFL season is going to be over anyway. I'm not even tripping over that. Before I go, I got one last topic I want to get into, because this has been like a little back and forth thing. And since we're on sports, we're talking about Unc, Shannon, Sharpe. I'm going to end with this. I have been seeing a lot of back and forth. I didn't think this would even generate so much back and forth, but apparently it has. And now with certain athletes going down, it's gotten even worse. But we're going to talk about this NFL 65 game rule, because I feel like something that seemed so common sense at the start of the season is really getting highlighted now that folks are being asked to do their job. So these are my 2 cents on it. For those of you who don't know, the NFL enacted a rule where the players have to play 65 games out of an 82-game season. They have to play 65 games to be eligible for like individual awards, first team All-NBA, MVP, things of that nature, right? And my understanding of it was that it was agreed upon between the league, the Players Association. Like, it was agreed upon. Owners, leagues, Players Association, everybody was like, okay, 65 games sounds fair. So, as we all know, when something is agreed upon, there may be people in that room that don't necessarily agree, but because like the greater good, the vast majority, everybody, like, we need to solve this, we need to get this thing taken care of, so we will concede to this number, right? That's how negotiations typically work. So we start at a high number, you start a low number, we meet in the middle. But at the end of the day, you agreed on it. Now we get near the end of the season, and you have some players, Maurice Halliburton, you have Joel Embiid, you have players who were balling. I know. So for a little added context, if you don't know, with a lot of these players, especially the higher end players, because this is a rule that is really only going to impact stars. If you're a role player on the team, then you were probably not getting one of these awards anyway. So you're not worried about the fact that if you don't play enough games, you won't get it, because you probably were never getting like first team All NBA. You probably were not getting MVP. You were not getting any of the individual awards. So you're not worried that you're ineligible for it now. But but for the guys who were getting it, and that's really who we're more concerned about, yeah, a lot of their contracts are I'm not gonna say incentive heavy, but there are incentives. So it's like, yeah, you'll get a max contract or you'll get a really good contract, or you might not even get a good contract, but you can end up making more money if you make first team All NBA. Or it might be dependent on you have to make an All Pro team, or you have to make the All Star game, or you have to make win a scoring title or do certain things, and those incentives will increase your money. All right. So at the start of the season, everybody came into the season knowing 65 games was the minimum out of an 82 game season. So you can miss 17 games out of an 82 game season and still be eligible. The players, now that we're in the weeds and we're nearing we're approaching All-Star break. We're not even in the weeds. We're approaching All-Star break. And some of the players are close to hitting their limit. Now everybody's complaining. Now all of a sudden, every day on sports, on ESPN or whatever, somebody's mentioning how this rule is BS, this rule is this rule is that. And the media and the league and people have been pushing back. I'm gonna give you my opinion on it. The rule started, it came out of a place of necessity. Too many players in this era, this most talented era, too many players were sitting out games where they were not hurt for what they called load management. So like, I am just not going to play tonight. Oh, we have back-to-back games. I'm only going to play one of them. We have nationally televised game. I may not play it. Like whatever it is, it's like they are balancing their schedule and they're looking at their schedule and saying, I'm going to sit out these games because they're either not as important. We may have already locked in whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like these are the games I'm just going to sit out. And that's fine. But what ends up happening with the stars, with the superstars of the team, you have fans who are only coming out to see their superstars, not getting to see them play because, I'm not saying never getting to see them, but like in games where they just choose to sit out, like the fans are missing out. The league is missing out. Some of these games are televised and it's like now you don't have the marquee player, the exciting player, the guy that's getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to play. He's not playing tonight in a game that we're putting this product front and center. And now you decide, yeah, I'm not going to play this one because it's the second night of a back-to-back or whatever. And that was, and the fans, I'm not going to say unanimously, but I haven't seen too many fans that were happy about that. Like most of the fans was like, yo, dog, you getting paid to play. And not to be the old man, not to be the old guy in this, but like I remember basketball in the 90s. That was not a thing. If people didn't play, they were hurt. They talked about they mentioned the MJs, the Pippen, Ewing, those guys, they played every night unless they were hurt. MJ has so many in his 15 years. I think they said he played over 70 games. I can't remember the number, but I know he has a bunch of full 82 game seasons, whereas most of these superstars today don't even have one 82 game season. If they do, they have a handful, one or two. You just don't get guys who are showing up every night, every day and playing. And what's crazy to a lot of the sports fans is the money and the medicine and the understanding and the things of the game are so much more now. So you have better treatment, you have better trainers, you are making more money, you have so much happening within the facility to keep you all healthy. So it's not that you're hurt, it's not that you're injured. Guys just aren't playing. So out of necessity, the league decided that one of the ways to deal with it was to force a mandatory minimum of 65 games. And now you have Joel Embiid, leading candidate for MVP. He won MVP last year. I think he's up leading for the scoring title this year so far. Got hurt. If he misses, and he has already missed a couple games this year, if he misses a couple more games, he becomes ineligible for all those things, right? You have Halliburton, who he was just vocal against it, talking about how bad it is. because he himself was hurt and he's about to miss a couple of games. And I think he only had, or he just came back. And if he misses a few more games, he also becomes ineligible. And his case is kind of egregious because if he misses the number of games that will take him past the 65, he ends up ineligible to make, I don't remember the specifics, but the bottom line is if he doesn't hit that number, he loses out on $41 million. Now, $41 million is a lot of money to lose out on. So let me and my broke self not even, let me not speak that. Let me not even talk about folks that are talking about losing out on $41 million, right? I don't even want to, I can't even speak on that level of finance. I can say this. I understand when you get in the position to that the thing is going to now impact you negatively, that now it's a problem. Like it's about to affect me personally. So yeah, now this is dumb. They should have never done this, blah, 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 because now I'm starting to be impacted by it negatively. So I understand that, but that doesn't make it dumb because you are now about to be impacted negatively. No. I heard Draymond Green was talking about it and everything. And quite frankly, I as a non-athlete, non-journalist, non-anything, just a fan watching, but you exercising a little bit of common sense and applying a little logic to it, I understand where the league is coming from. I don't think the rule is crazy at all. I think it can be tweaked for certain things to account for injuries. But honestly, if you're injured to the point where you're missing that many games in the season, no, you also should not be eligible for those things. Like whether it's injury or not, like if you're going to miss, 17, 18, 20, 22 games in an 82 game season, then no, we're going to consider the guys who did not get hurt. We're sorry. We understand injuries happen. Injuries are a part of the game because injuries are a part of everyday life. People get injured without playing professional sports. So worse, when you're playing for professional sports, you are at an elevated risk of those injuries. We get that. But if I cannot find a way to separate and account for injuries versus voluntarily sitting out games and load management, because then you get into this realm of having the athletes claim to be injured because they want to load manage, and you don't want to question the athlete's integrity, so you just keep it blanket. Like, no, there's just a number. There's a minimum number of games you have to show up for, and we don't care the reason you show up for them or not. Here are the number of games you can miss in a season to be eligible for these things. I think that's fair. I think there is a way. I think that is the most fair way. Like, you have to set a number. Some people believe the number should be lower. Some people, former athletes, Charles Barkley, a couple other people, thinks the number could be higher. They feel like they gave them too many. They allowed them to miss too many games. I don't know if I agree with that. I think 65 is fine. I wouldn't have been mad at 60, but I'm also wouldn't been mad at 70. But 65 is fine. At the end of the day, you have to show up, because the product that you're putting out there, the thing that allows you to enjoy the kind of riches that you're making, the kind of money that you're making, has to be able to be marketed to people, the advertisers, the league, the fans. If you are not playing, you are doing a disservice to the fans and the advertisers and the people that are putting all the money into the league that's allowing you to live this life of wealth. Because again, you're not playing for 30, 40 grand a year. We're talking multi-million-dollar contracts, and they're asking you to play 82 games a season. Not even asking you to play 82. They're asking you to play 65 games of an 82-game season. Also, we are not even impacting your contractually obligated money. We're not even saying you lose out on your money. So it's not like you're being paid per like actual game or whatever. No, you're still getting the money in your contract. You're just not eligible for the incentives attached to your contract. So they're not taking money away from you that's guaranteed. They're saying, hey, if you do all these extra little things, you could make this extra money. So you're only losing out on the potential extra money, which, like, in reality is you could play the 65 games and still not make some of those things. Now, we know with some of the max players, they're going to make it, but it's like, we're not even taking money away from you. We're saying the incentives we're offering you are contingent on you playing 65 games. That's it. And the athletes are complaining. That to me is like, that is like a rich people privilege thing. That is those are first world problems that I just can't even, like, I can't even pretend to agree with y'all on this one. And I usually agree with athletes on a lot, but like, bruh, the problem was brought up to address, it was, the rule was brought up to address a problem that you all that you all created. Sorry. Greg Popovich started the load management thing with the Spurs, and he was having players sit out games where fans were showing up and you would not get to see the stars play. It's worse for away games because if I'm a Laker fan right now living in DC, and the Lakers are only coming to DC once a year, so now here's my opportunity to see the big stars play. So I buy a ticket to that game, take my kid, whatever. And I'm not trying to paint the sob story, but I'm painting the reality of it when you do it on a road game. Now I come out to see this guy and who is not hurt. Because if you're hurt, that's just the luck of the draw. If you're injured, that's the luck of the draw. But you're just like, nah, I don't do back-to-backs, or this game is coming on the back of another game, or no, I need to sit out certain games, blah, blah, blah. So this is going to be one of the ones I sit out. And I don't get to see you. So now I spent the money for my kid to come to see, the player that he looks up to, his idol, blah, 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 biggest fan. And that player's on the side of the court in street clothes, laughing and joking and talking with the other players, but we don't get to see him play. That's a bad look for the NBA. That's a bad look for sports. The league took steps to address that by saying, hey, we are going to, and even the steps they took were just affecting your incentives. It was just impacting your ability to get the awards that would give you the incentives. And y'all are complaining about that. I don't got no sympathy for y'all. I'm happy with the league. Y'all lucky it's not 70. So like I said, it may impact Halliburton, and he may end up not making, if he misses a few more games, he's gonna lose out on $40 million. I don't hope that for him. So I hope he plays. I hope he's able to stay in the league. I hope he's able to stay healthy and continue to play through the season. And like I was watching Gilbert Arenas podcast earlier, and they talked about, like, people were chiming in on how they felt about it, and Gilbert offered a solution that I think didn't fully address the problem. Like, I like the concept of his solution, but I don't think it addressed the problem. I think the rule is still stupid because he said I don't think the rule is stupid. I'm sorry. He said the rule is stupid because there's a better solution. His better solution was just to base everything on totals instead of averages. The problem with his solution is it only really addresses one thing. So what he's talking about is, like, when you're talking about like the scoring title as a way to entice players to play more games, you don't base the awards on their average. So now the number of games you play matter, because like Joel Embiid, for example, is leading the league in scoring based on his scoring average right now. But in terms of total points, because he's missed a bunch of games, he's like, I think they said 7th or 9th on the list or something. He's not leading, and he's not close to leading either. And he had a 70-point game, which obviously pushes his average up. But when he doesn't play, those don't count against his average. So Gilbert was saying that if you just base everything on totals, then the guys who play more are more likely to receive the consideration for the things. So that will incentivize the stars to play more. I think that addresses part of the problem, but it doesn't address the whole problem. Because if I'm the best player on my team by far, like if I'm an all NBA player, I'm an all pro player, I'm an all-star by any metric, then my totals don't matter as much. The only thing the totals really matter for is the scoring title. But if you know that I'm the impact player on this team, yes, this person may have more blocks, more steals, or more total points than me, and it usually won't have more total points than me on the same team. So let me take that back. But like on another team, that person might have more total points than me from playing every game, but we both play the same position, and now we're voting for All-Star, or now we're voting for All-Pro. Yeah, you're not going to vote him because he has more total points, because you're looking at me like, nah, that's the better of the two. That is an impact player. He is the better of the two. He will be first team. This person may or may not be second team. And then, or if we're an all-star and we only got one slot for a power forward, nope, that's the person we're voting into the all-star game. So it's like Gilbert's solution only addressed the problem of scoring title, I think. It doesn't address, like, if I'm just the better player, and I'm going to be voted into those categories regardless of my totals or my averages. So I believe that while his solution is good intention, I don't think it works. I don't think it addresses the whole problem. I think what they did is what addresses the whole problem, that, hey, your incentives are going to be determined by whether or not you make it through 65 games. There's a part of me that feels like maybe the making an adjustment for injuries might help, but it may not. I don't know. I feel like playing 65 out of an 82 game season isn't too much to ask. So either way, those are my thoughts on it. That was the last thing I wanted to get off my chest, off my heart. And I want to thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, staying with me through this. For all of you in Trinidad right now for Carnival, have a great time once again. Please share everything. I want to see it. The parties this weekend, Stinkin' Dutty and Jam Nation, looked crazy. More so Stinkin' Dutty. I saw more Stinkin' Dutty content than I did Jam Nation. But I'm having a good time watching y'all on social media, having a good time. I will not miss it next year, God willing. Like, I will not be missing it next year. So I'm back in there, and I'm gonna try to hit something else over the course of this 2024, because I can't just be here chilling and miss out on everything. So I don't know what it's going to be, but it'll be something this year. I'm looking down the calendar right now to see what I'm gonna hit. Big up Atlanta for finally getting it right and putting their two carnivals together, because that used to be nuts. I mean, I haven't been, but I remember for years for the last couple of years at least, watching the struggle of Atlanta having two carnivals. And some people, I had a friend go last year, and she did not know that which one she was in. And then the last couple of years, one of them ended up getting shut down or canceled or didn't get their permits or whatever right to actually have the carnival. And the other one had to like take in Masquerade. It was a mess. I don't want to get into all of the weeds of it. It sounded nuts. It was a mess. Like, I am glad that this year they have combined it. They got everybody together and they said, yo, one carnival. So that should be good. But I'm not even that's not even what I'm talking about right now in terms of finding something. I need to be on somebody's island. I need to be at somebody's full Caribbean experience. Like, I don't want to do a local. I mean, I'm going to do a local, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. So I'm going to find my way to something. But for those of you in Trinidad, have a good time. Enjoy yourselves. Like I told y'all last week, don't decrease or increase the population while y'all down there. Just have y'all fun. Until the next time, we're going to keep these topics coming. If you have something you want me to talk about, if you enjoyed the episode and there's some things that you think I got wrong, feel free to hit me up, correct me, jump in the comments. If I said something that I made a mistake, I have no problem with being corrected. I love it because it helps me to grow and it educates me. So by all means, and share the content with your folks. Like, sharing and subscribing is free, y'all. So it don't cost you nothing to hit subscribe, but it supports me greatly. And don't cost you nothing to send it to a couple of people who might be interested. That also supports me and helps me out greatly. And if you made it this far, that means that you were at least entertained and engaged all the way through. So I appreciate you for sticking with me to this point. Shout out to everybody throwing events in the DMV in the coming weeks. And we're going to be running around in these streets. This February 24th, again, is PCP by the Hooky Life Crew. Fetish by Ricky Platinum is February 25th. Sekou Flex is bringing you Soca and Rum on March 2nd. Giovanni, March 9th in the daytime, he has straight Soca, and the 9th, also on March 9th, that night, Freeze International is bringing you SSS. So get your tickets, follow those promoters, get all the information you can. Until the next time, next week most likely, but until the next time, this has been the Applying Logic Podcast. I am your host, Rich, and I am out.